I'm a huge advocate of zero-based budgeting. So I kind of hate the word budget. I don't love that word. But to us, it doesn't necessarily mean scarcity. It simply means having discipline with your finances and being intentional about where your money goes.
For some people like me, debt can feel like an incredible weight on your shoulders. After carrying this weight for a while, there comes a time when you say, I am done with this. On our debt-free living segment today, we're going to interview Ali Swart from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ali and her husband Bill became debt-free after paying off around $100,000 of debt in just about 3 years. Today, we're going to learn how they accomplished this family financial goal and what they're doing with their money now. Welcome to the show, Ali.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Absolutely. Thank you for connecting. I know we're buddies on Instagram, and it's great to connect with you in person. Well, virtually in person, I guess that's really the real term here. Let's talk about your story. Why did you want to become debt-free in the first place?
When I was growing up, money was a stressor for my parents. I heard them fight about money and specifically around debt. At one point, my parents had 2 loans against our home. Our dad was notorious for using credit cards as a source of funds. With his job as a general contractor, anytime he was in between projects, he tended to resort to a credit card. And this created the necessity for income to not only satisfy those debt obligations, but also to just live our lifestyle, right? And so early on, I internalized these beliefs that debt was a bad thing by hearing these arguments. And I started to internalize the beliefs that, number one, I should never live beyond my means. And number two, that a family shouldn't have to rely on 2 sources of income to be able to make the household work. Now, those were young beliefs. As I got more into my 20s and 30s, it did hit me that there is a difference between consumer debt and debt that can help you build wealth, whether that's through business ownership or, real estate investing, things like that. And our goal was to get rid of all of our consumer debt that was not helping us build long-term wealth.
I love that distinction, and thank you for walking through that with us. So what type of consumer debt did you and your husband have?
Yeah, so I started off with student loan debt. I did 4 years of undergrad, and then I did a 2-year MBA program. So at the crux of it, I had about $36,000 of student loan debt. I finally made my last payment in 2020. I took advantage of when interest rates stopped and repayments had to stop. So I made my final student loan payment in 2020. Over the last several years, I've paid off 2 cars. So I had a car loan from 2015 to 2018 that I paid off. That car ended up dying in 2020. So I got a new car and then paid that car off from 2020 to 2023. And another piece of consumer debt that we had was a home equity line of credit. So those were kind of the 3 big chunks. The only smaller debt that we had for a little while was I was a Peloton junkie during COVID. So I did jump on the Peloton bandwagon in 2020 when COVID came.
I would say, during that time when you're worried about your mental health and your physical health, I might put that into the good debt category too.
I would agree because that was very much used, and I still use it actively today. So good purchase there, but yeah, I purchased that in 2020.
Well, I love that. Those 4 things that you mentioned are all very human of you, and a lot of things that I personally went through as well. I had the HELOC, I had the student loans, we had the car debt. Talk to us about the steps that you took to pay off that stuff. You saw your debt over this time period. Did you increase your income? Did you decrease your expenses? What did you do to manage this and get through that 100K?
Yeah, absolutely. So with increasing our income, going back several years, my husband changed jobs in 2017. So when he changed jobs in 17, he took about a 20 to 25% pay increase at that time, which was very helpful. On the flip side, in 2018, I actually took a pay decrease. So I changed jobs. I went to a smaller company where I saw the growth potential. So for a year or so there, I actually took a pay decrease, but that that has paid off over time because I'm still with that company. I'm a partner at our company. And so the short-term risk was definitely long-term gain for us. I would say the biggest thing that we did though is I'm a huge advocate of zero-based budgeting. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of hate the word budget. I don't love that word. But to us, it doesn't necessarily mean scarcity. It simply
Mm-hmm.
means having discipline with your finances and being intentional about where your money goes. And so, in order to pay off that amount of debt, you have to be intentional about where your income is going to be able to achieve these debt payment goals. So, that was a huge part of what led us to get to where we are today is through zero-based budgeting and that entire system.
I
Um,
love that.
I will say we did not decrease expenses during that time. If anything, our expenses increased because we had children in childcare. We had our daughter in December of 2019. So starting in 2020, we had two children in daycare as opposed to one. And so during that time from 2020 to 2023, were probably the most expensive years with daycare costs for us.
Yeah, and probably not only the most expensive, but 2020 to 2023 and daycare. Those words don't go together very well. How did you guys manage that during the pandemic? Were there daycare available for you
I
guys?
have to say we were very, very blessed. Our daycare was only closed for the 10 weeks that was mandated from March to May in 2020 and was open afterwards. They had very good COVID protocols to where the entire school did not shut down if there were instances. So I will say there were a lot of issues with childcare during that time, but we were very blessed with the school center that we used.
I think that's great. Yeah. So, can you talk to us about your general range of income during that time period when you guys were paying off the debt?
Yeah, so we're very blessed in terms of being six-figure income earners. My husband and I both have MBA degrees, and we're very blessed to have a high income. I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that helps a lot, especially when you're six figures plus. There's some families that I speak to are even in that six figure plus range that are feeling some pinch right now. Like maybe they've got more than a couple of kids and they're saying, wow, life is just more expensive. I guess talk to us about the importance of increasing your income when you can, when you're in these types of situations, because the the ability for us to live and move forward as families, there are expenses that need to happen. Yeah, we can be frugal, but talk to us about the importance of increasing your income and how this made this process easier for you
Yeah,
guys.
increasing income, it's so important, especially in this inflationary environment. And you have to control what you can control. So the couple of things that we did was, my husband switched jobs. I switched jobs. This was 6 years ago. Being able to advocate for yourself and ask for those raises, I think is really important. And going to your managers and being able to advocate for that. The other thing that was important for us was we built our home in 2017 and we built that home based upon one income. To your point, Andy, there's a lot of families that may have high incomes and may earn six figures, but if you become real estate poor, or I'm sorry, real estate rich and cash poor, we see people all the time that over mortgage themselves or buy a new car every few years and kind of do those things. We were very intentional about the fixed expenses that we knew we were going to have. And so, you know, building that house based upon one income and being able to afford it on one income was a decision that I'll be forever grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's this keeping up with the Joneses or keeping up with the Instagrams about where we feel like we need to be, but it doesn't really match up with our
Right.
income, and so we either need to right size or increase that income, right? So talk to us about what life looks like for you guys now. You're both making great money. You have zero consumer debt in your life. Your kids are starting to get slightly older, so you're not dealing with infants. Well, I guess actually I didn't really ask you, how old are your kids now?
Yeah, so our oldest just started kindergarten in August of
Okay.
23. So we have a kindergartner now, we have one out of daycare, and then our 3.5-year-old will be in daycare for the next couple of years, given her age. So,
Okay, well, still 5 and 3 is still pretty crazy at home. I remember that quite a bit. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, nevertheless, you guys are doing well financially. What are your next financial steps? Maybe you can motivate people who out there who are on their debt-free journey or paying off that debt and just seeing what's on the other side. Talk just about your financial goals coming forward.
Yeah, so all of our consumer debt is gone. That was very important to us. We still have a mortgage, which we don't see the need to pay down because we were one of the blessed people that have a sub 3% mortgage right now. So to me, there's no reason for us to put additional money towards that mortgage at this point. So what we did do was start a mortgage pay down fund. So we're starting to put money in a separate account in a money market that yields, more than 5%. So you have that interest rate arbitrage there. We more than doubled the contributions to our taxable brokerage account in order to save and continue to grow that. And then we doubled the money that's going into our kids' 529s and UTMA accounts.
Nice. So generational wealth, helping you guys have some flexibility with maybe early retirement aspirations if you guys were doing the taxable, or is the taxable brokerage account for something else?
The taxable brokerage is really just to have money outside of the retirement accounts. You've done many episodes on Coast Fi and knowing when it's okay to back off of those retirement contributions. So that is something that we did this year that also helped towards paying off a lot of the consumer debt, because we got to the point where we feel we have enough money in retirement funds. We still contribute, we get the company match, but we're not in the camp of necessarily maxing out 401ks anymore.
I love that. So talk to me about that. You're in wealth management, or you understand this world quite a bit. What do you think of the idea of Coast Fire? Is that something that's not talked about enough in your opinion, or is there a purpose for people not talking about it
Well,
enough?
in my opinion, the overall aura of retirement has changed.
Yeah.
My stepdad worked at a plant for 40 years. He has a pension. He worked until I think he was 65, 67. The reality is that just doesn't exist for our generation. Staying with a company for 30 or 40 years and coasting on a pension does not exist anymore for most people. And so what you have are people that are living a little bit more in the moment now. And
Mhm.
you need that money outside of a retirement account to be able to access prior to 59 and a half if you want to be able to do those things. So I think it comes with diversity of income, diversity of your savings, being able to maximize tax benefits where possible, and understanding the goals of the person that is sitting on the other side of the table for you. I'm a certified financial planner, so coming at it from what are you trying to achieve with your family is so important, because no two people are going to have the same goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's less about maximizing the number and the wealth number and more about how does this align with your specific goals as a family.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, there's somebody listening right now. Let's say that they saw the title of this episode and they've got, $50 to $100,000 of consumer debt that they're trying to pay through. They make good money as a couple, but they're spending all of it. What advice would you have for them as they're trying to clobber this consumer debt and maybe see the other side of these conversations like Coast Fire and planning for maybe a mortgage-free future?
Sure. So the two things that I changed in 2022 and 2023 was I wrote down goals. I think a lot of people have goals in their heads, but I wrote them down. I keep them in a notebook. It's literally old school notebook. So I wrote them down, and then I overlaid the zero-based budgeting system that we had. So I wrote out every paycheck and allocated those dollars. So each paycheck, I knew exactly where that money was going. Each bonus, I knew where that money was going. If we got a tax return, I knew where that money was going. And it was very visual. And then on top of that, I used Canva, which is just a little graphic
Mhm.
creator, to be able to track a progress bar every month throughout 2023. So that created a lot of intrinsic motivation in me to be able to visually create that graphic every month and see my progress as we were moving towards that goal. And so for anybody that's like, where do I start? I know I need to change. Write down the goals, utilize a zero-based budgeting system to back into what it's going to take. And then you may have to make some hard decisions. I know we said we didn't change our spending habits too much, but we did change some of the big things, like we delayed a patio thing that my husband wants. We had allocated $5,000 to put a patio on in our backyard. And we said, no, we're not going to do that this year. And that money went straight to the home equity line of credit. So there is some delayed gratification and decisions that you will have to make in order to better yourself.
I love that. And eventually you get the patio and it feels that much better under your feet, right?
Yes. The patio is back on the docket for 2024, so we will see if that happens.
Oh, yeah.
But
I better see a picture of that on your Instagram.
There you go. There you go.
I love it. I love it. Well, speaking of connecting with you and learning more about what's going on in your world, tell us about what you're up to and maybe how people can connect with you.
Yes. So as I mentioned, I'm a certified financial planner, and our company is Waldron Private Wealth. We specialize in working with high net worth business owners, their families, high income earners, and real estate investors. I think we're a little bit unique in the sense that we're not solely AUM based advisors. A lot of advisors out there charge an AUM fee. And while AUM is certainly a part of our business model, we work on a retainer basis as well, because particularly with business owners and real estate folks, sometimes they have a really nice net worth and they need really good advice, but they don't have a liquid investable portfolio to be able to manage. And so many advisors out there, they won't really work with you unless you have a portfolio of investable assets. So I think that's something that separates us apart in being able to be flexible about how we're charging for advice.
I think that's fantastic. How could people connect with you?
Yeah, so waldronprivatewealth.com. You can check us out on the website. And selfish plug, we also have a podcast. I co-host our podcast. So it's called Wealth Simplified with Waldron Private Wealth. And so it's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all your major platforms. So that's a really great way to connect with us and hear our insights.
Yeah, especially if you're listening to this podcast right now, just type in Wealth Simplified. You'll see Ali and all her great advice. Ali, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.